morning, everybody. Enter the stars. This is a clip from Westworld, and this we completed filming in the middle of 2019, long before the CV. And this is the second scene that I saw of people wearing masks. Here's another guy wearing a mask here. We also did a montage a couple weeks ago from this series of people wearing masks. In that montage, there was a little boy wearing a mask. So they were already pre-programming us for this CV outbreak. Now, Westworld was all about a dystopian future in which a mainframe artificial intelligence computer called Rehoboam controls the outcomes and events of every single person on the planet. Then these machines rise up. They're like basically androids that look very human, and they quote-unquote free society from Rehoboam. But the irony is that they are run by artificial intelligence as well. So I wanted to open the show with that clip to show you that the things that we've been seeing are very real. Now, this is part 2 of the Rise of the Raccoon series that we're doing on the live shows this morning. Yesterday was part 1. If you missed that, you might want to check it out. Otherwise, you might be lost. I'm going to try to slow everything down so everybody sees exactly what's going on. That this is all about the raccoon eyes. Now, the word raccoon, of course, scrambled, spells core, own, for those that didn't know, which, of course, is the name of the disease that we're dealing with right now. Now, the enemy always reveals their plans before they carry them out. And those of us that are given spiritual eyes to see can see those plans so that we can talk to you about it so that you're not deceived when all these things begin to take place. Now, I wanted to show you this image. Let me close this up. Of some ants that were sent to me. And as you can see, they're in the shape, or they're manifesting into the shape of the raccoon eyes. Now, I don't believe things like this are random. And as we get into the show, you're going to see what I'm talking about. Let's close this up. So let's blow this up a little bit because I want you to see these ants and how they're coming out of the concrete in this manifested shape of the raccoon eyes. And like I said, I don't think this is an accident. Look at this. This is crazy. Look how they all are coming out of the ground. There's no reason why there should be a gap here in this image where they're coming out of the ground. It almost appears as though they're filling a space that we can't see. Some invisible space that we can't see. And we're going to get into the ramifications of that. There's some clues in the border of the live show that you're probably looking at right now on the left-hand side, where you can see what we're going to get into. So, does this have something to do with some invisible electromagnetic field? Are these ants being controlled and influenced by some outside force? Now I'm going to show you some images of millimeter waves. Now, this all just hit me this morning. These are electromagnetic waves, millimeter waves. They combine electric field with a magnetic field. And as you can see on the graph, they oscillate. And together, they form the millimeter waves and can travel at the speed of light. Now, you can see the raccoon eyes manifesting in this graph. There is a visual interpretation of what an electromagnetic field or waves look like, a millimeter wave, which of course is 5G whiz, right? Here's a different version of it. This one, you don't see the raccoon eyes as well, but they're there for those with eyes to see. The two alternating waves forming the raccoon eyes in this field. Now, this is an unprecedented discovery. We're not really seeing people understand the true nature of the reality of the world we live in, and why this raccoon theme has risen over the past 6 months to a year. So we'll get into this more. I wanted to open the show with this. I wanted to also talk about some really good news that is going on right now. And that is that this video was taken down by Microsoft. Let me pause this. Sorry, guys. Jumping around a little bit. The following montage falls. So I'm going to go backtrack and talk to you about exactly how all this went down. Now, this was a story by Reclaim the Net. And it says Microsoft deletes HoloLens commercial featuring controversial artist Marina Abramovich. And we had done an expose on this yesterday morning. We talked all about how the raccoon eyes fit into this storyline, how the HoloLens, the mascot, is actually a mascot called Bit the Raccoon, B-I-T, the raccoon. And that was all about getting bit, right? And disease. We talked to you about how disease and raccoons are synonymous. Showed you clips from Over the Hedge, which featured a raccoon, and the lady said that they would cause a pandemic, and that's exactly what happened decades later after Over the Hedge came out, the animated film. And many, many other synchronicities about the raccoon and surrounding the raccoon. So this went on, and we exposed this along with a lot of other channels. But this goes far beyond S-cooking, which is what Marina Abramovich was involved in with Podesta and Hillary Clinton. This goes far beyond that. We exposed that yesterday, talking about the life actually meaning the life in the blood. The blood is the life. And so I believe that's what she was really talking about in this. We also showed you how the production company called Tin Drum was based off of a movie by the same name, in which an 11-year-old boy is forced to perform acts on a 24-year-old woman. That movie was censored. So there's much more to this than what you're hearing from some of the other channels. If you're watching their videos, please add that information in their comments so people can understand the full depth of this. And I'm not taking anything away from their work. They can't know and see everything. But everybody needs to know the full depth of what Microsoft was trying to pull off with Marina Abramovich. If you're more interested in finding out why the film Tin Drum was censored, just go onto the Wikipedia page and look it up. And do a little bit of research. You can go around into Google and type in Tin Drum censored scenes, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's absolutely disgusting. So Microsoft took down the video. First they disabled the comments. Then when it got to 24,000 thumbs down and only about 600 thumbs up, they turned off the ratings. But a lot of people caught the screenshot of what exactly went down. And here it is here. And then finally, they removed the video. People are awake, you guys. They even changed the website as well. But consider for a second the arrogance of a company like Microsoft to even try something like this. It tells you where Bill Gates' head is at. You think he didn't co-sign this? He still has stakes in this company. He co-signed this. He would never allow something like this to happen unless he wanted it to happen. So that gives you a snapshot into the mind of Bill Gates. So, switching gears, today we're going to talk about Trump's new Artemis project. And this is a project that he's developed to return to the moon, right? He wants to go back to the moon. Here's the Artemis program here. And remember, JFK was the first president to make the case to go to the moon in the 1960s. And in 1969, we supposedly went to the moon. Now, previously, about 50 to 75% of people in the truth community did not believe that we ever went to the moon until Trump came into office. We all put our brains on the shelf. And here we are 50 years later, after the first quote-unquote trip to the moon And Trump is saying we're going to go back. And he wants to put a man and a woman, the first man and woman. This would be the rebirthing of humankind, right? Adam and Eve. That's what they're really talking about here. Adam and Eve, but built in the image of the serpent. Look at the logo for Artemis. It's basically a serpent climbing through the apex of the A, right? Slithering around. You could call this the tree, maybe. This could be a tree. Over the convex lens Earth, which this is the true shape of the Earth. It's like a mound. It's pretty flat, but it's like a mound with higher ground in the middle, but everything settles flat. Water settles flat. But there's mountains up here, and then here's down here, and then you got the ice wall, and you got the firmament going over the top. And Satan wants to elevate himself above the Most High, right? So there's the mountain. He's going to go. He's elevating himself above the Most High, or he's trying to. That's what it says in the Bible. Now, it's interesting because Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo. And Trump has this affinity for Apollo in his penthouse, right? 66th floor penthouse. He has Apollo art, Apollo decor. And, of course, Apollo is mentioned in the book of Revelation as Apollyon Abaddon, right? So first, what I'm going to do is we're going to watch this montage. I probably need my earphones for this. And then we'll put together, and I'll show you what I put together last week, and then we can talk a little bit about what all this means and how this is going to affect you and I and where the elite are taking us, right? All right, got my earphones in. All right, let's go back to this montage here. I put this together last week. I want you to watch and listen. Use artistic content, which according to YouTube's guidelines may depict artistic subject matter normally not permissible outside of artistic context. In the months and days and weeks leading up to what we're going through right now, there seemed to be pre-programming talking about zombie raccoons. Well, when you scramble the word raccoon, it comes out to spell the name of what we're going through right now. Now, why would they do this? Well, hindsight's 2020, and that's what we look at on this channel. How they're pre-programming us for what is to come. Raccoon and crown. Crown in the Latin American language is what you're seeing on your screen right now. So we're going to pause here, and what I want you to understand is that this raccoon thing is real. They start talking about raccoon zombies in the months and years leading up to all of this, all across U.S., Ohio, New York. There were stories dotted all over the mainstream media about zombie raccoons with these crazy looking eyes running around, possibly carrying some kind of disease. Leading into this whole thing that we're dealing with right now with the CV. And then in San Francisco last year, a man came in with a dead raccoon and put it on a table in McDonald's. That video went viral. Well, just blocks away from where that McDonald's was, there's a place called Twin Peaks in San Francisco, and it's on Raccoon Drive and Crown, the corner of Raccoon and Crown. And it looks like, as you can see at the bottom of your screen here, raccoon eyes. Now, we noticed this before the CV hit. We did a video on it. We knew all this was going to happen. Here's the cruise ship that got quarantined. Look on the front of the cruise ship. The princess looks like raccoon eyes. You're starting to see how all this is symbolism. See the front of the cruise ship here? Those are the raccoon eyes. The mask. We're going to get into what all that means as well. So, let's keep going. Look at the mask on the front of the boat that was quarantined. And of course, it showed up in this film. So what does all this mean? Well, I believe that this is the rise of the raccoon, because there's much more to this than meets the eye. And we'll be discussing all this on Monday's live show. Stay tuned for that. This is the orbital path of Artemis, the return trip to the moon. And look at the raccoon eyes. So, Artemis, the proposed orbital path. Now, I know that this orbital path was the same orbital path of the Apollo missions. But do you think it's an accident that this matches the millimeter wave, electromagnetic wave that I just showed you? And that this matches the raccoon eyes? No, of course, this is not an accident. The Earth represents one eye, the moon the other. The eyes of good and evil. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. That's in the Bible. All of this is biblical. Let's keep going. Clear as day, the Earth forming one eye, the moon the other. The same raccoon eyes that we saw on the front of the boat, as well as the Twin Peaks in San Francisco, where some of the first cases began. Now, Trump has a picture of Apollo over his mantle on the 66th floor of Trump Tower. And Artemis was the twin sister of Apollo. Do you think that he didn't have anything to do with the naming of the NASA mission? Now I want you to watch the rest of the pre-programming preparing us for the raccoon and the pandemic going back decades.
There is someplace else we could go.
It's wonderful. If I had a place like this to go to, I'd be there every day.
So that was a scene from Star Trek many years ago. You'll see the rest of that scene in a second here. But I interwove this other 1951 animated film called Raccoon Dog. Watch.
Don't your people have recreational facilities?
Don't your people have recreational facilities?
Congregating in groups is strictly regulated. It's considered to be a threat to public health.
Congregating in groups is strictly regulated. Threat to public health. Threat to public health. Threat to public health.
A wise policy.
Sometimes I think my people spend so much time trying to save lives, they don't know how to live anymore.
Doctor!
They don't know how to live anymore. This is unbelievable pre-programming, right? Right there in our faces. Now, this isn't the only instance that I found. There's many, many, many more. But they were already talking about social distancing back then and people forgetting how to live. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Now, fortunately, enough people woke up where they're starting to wind this thing down because they understand that too many people are awake to it. People basically just shirked all of the guidelines and recommendations, and there was no way they were going to get enough people in the police department to comply and basically put everybody away and fine everybody. They realized that they didn't have the control they thought they did, and now they're talking about opening everything back up. Hopefully a lesson was learned by all this. But I don't know. Let's keep watching. So here we are back to the 1951 Disney's clip about Raccoon Dog. And this is crazy. 1951, and they were already showing the CV.
Yes, sir, folks. When the old harvest moon is big and yellow and the frost is
Harvest Moon, Return to the Moon, right? Keep watching.
catching up.
I put this together. I just took what was on the ground and placed it around the moon. It looks like a CV to me. Look at the ends, how they flare out. They bulb at the ends. It's exactly what this is. It's all symbolism and imagery for these people.
It ain't no time for sitting home. Man, this is coon hunting time.
Now, if you think about how racially inappropriate that was, but it's still allowed on YouTube, it's still allowed because Disney made it, right? But for those of you that are African American like myself, you know what the term raccoon means when it comes to race. Watch. So this is, of course, is from Over the Hedge, again, decade ago. Animated film that stars a raccoon, and his favorite snack is nacho cheese. Now, it's interesting because nacho is the acronym for a basically CDC-funded group who is trying to force VCs on people. There it is. You see it here, the National Association of County and City Health Officials. And according to their own policy, they want to address all stages of life from cradle to grave with regards to VCs, even for children. Nacho.
Come on.
He was right over there! That's where the squirrel attacked us! He had like rabies or something!
Did I just hear them say rabid squirrel?
Oh, I think they might just be overreacting.
But what if they're not? What if we have a potential pandemic on our hands?
What if we have a potential pandemic on our hands? Potential pandemic.
Vermin running loose, spreading disease, and lowering our property values?
What if we have a potential pandemic on our hands? Potential pandemic.
Fine. You worry about your casserole, and I'll worry about the end of suburban peace and tranquility!
The suburban peace and tranquility!
Kids, eat up. Anything that tastes this good has to be good for you.
That's right.
So there, of course, everything that's happened, the destruction of the economy because of the pandemic. Now you see the images that they wanted us to see, which would be National Guard trucks distributing foods, everybody on house arrest. Watch.
Don't push, plenty for everybody. Got a box right over here for you.
We've seen this over and over, this image of men in military garb standing in the back of a truck. The truck is the little trailer here, right? The wagon. And distributing boxes of food. We saw this in the other film that we just saw about the man and the woman that go into the neighborhood. They get locked in. They can't find their way out. That was called Vivarium, and I showed you how varium is actually an algae that kills the CV specifically. So they gave a double meaning to the name of that film. That film came out before all of this happened. It was all pre-programming. A varium is an algae that kills CV. The film name was Vivarium, and in that film they received a box of food every day that was left on their doorstep. Just like you're seeing right here. You're starting to see that there is a spirit behind all of this. National Guard food distribution.
A penny?
Oh, jeepers, that is good.
What keeps the humans going? It's why they don't hibernate. You feel that buzzing in the back of your skull?
Yeah.
The buzz in the back of the skull is 5G whiz.
That's called a sugar rush.
Okay. So I put together that montage last week. Many of you saw that already. But many didn't, and I did promise to review it again so you could better understand what I was trying to show you. So what is this fascination with the raccoon eyes? Well, I believe this goes all the way back to the Venetians and the domino mask. Here it is right here. This is the domino mask. It looks like raccoon eyes. We saw this prominently displayed in the Eyes Wide Shut film. It's all about a fascination with the eyes. And according to this Wikipedia article, the word domino means lord. So they want to be our lord. So they wear these masks. I believe this represents the ability to carry out actions in plain sight while maintaining complete anonymity through the blindness of others, more so than the very scant and minimal concealment of the area around the eyes. So when you look at this mask, it doesn't seem like it would really hide anything, right? This is where their power comes from. Their power comes from hiding in plain sight and your blindness to not see them. You can see the entire rest of their body, but you still don't see them because they have deceived you. You're the blind one. They could literally not even probably have to wear a mask and you still wouldn't get it. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about people. The populace, humanity. So, there are variations on the domino mask in the Venetian masks. Here's one variation right here. It's called the plague mask. Here it is. A Venetian mask was normally white, consisting of a hollow beak and round eye holes covered with clear glass, and is one of the distinctive masks worn during the Carnival of Venice. The costume itself was associated with death. Where there's plague, there's the beak doctors, and also death, which has become deeply ingrained in popular culture. Do you see now how all this fits together? Are you starting to see how this fits together and why the raccoons keep appearing in the symbolism associated with CV? There's a reason for it. So, let's go back here to this Artemis program. So I wanted to show you that Trump is spearheading this. Okay, this is Artemis, Apollo's twin sister. Here's the Artemis program here. Started in 2017. Trump was the one that kicked this off. And by 2024, which is just 4 years away, they are saying that they're going to return to the moon with the first man and woman. This will be the Adam and Eve building man in their image. And make no mistake, this is going to dovetail in with artificial intelligence, 5G whiz. In 2017, Trump signed Space Policy Directive 1. Okay? And basically, this happened on December 11th, 2017, with 20 days left to go in the air. And he signed this directive to basically take man to the moon. Okay? Here it is right here. Let's see. Let's look it up. So I'm hoping this is all beginning to make sense. You can't not believe that we went to the moon and still support Trump after this, because he's sinking billions, maybe even trillions of dollars into saying we're going to go to the moon, right? You can't say he's playing 5D chess, because he's not. He's simply wasting money. He says here in 2017, we'll learn the directive I'm signing today will refocus America's space program on human exploration and discovery. It marks an important step in returning American astronauts to the moon for the first time since 1972 for a long-term exploration and use. This time, we will not only plant our flag and leave our footprint, we'll establish a foundation for an eventual mission to Mars, and perhaps someday to many worlds beyond. Now, the problem is that as we enter this digital age where you can't believe anything you see anymore, they could make up any story they want. we don't even know what's real anymore in terms of what we're seeing. You see a video of somebody doing something that might not even be real. This is the way they wanted it because it absolves them from any trouble that they could get into, because they could simply say it's a deep fake and that wasn't really them in the video doing things to people. Okay? So now that you understand the orbital path of the return trip and why it looks like raccoon eyes and all the deception hiding in plain sight through our own ignorance, not because they were really trying to hide the truth from us, but it's because of our ignorance. They do this so that they can be like gods. They do really do want to be like Apollyon, the gods, the ancient gods with a little g. So, this is where we're at. Now, let's go back in the chat. Hang out for a little bit with you guys. Thanks everybody for showing up this morning. Now, this isn't over yet, is my belief. I believe that they'll go into some kind of phase 2 on this whole CV thing that's going on. And they won't completely open everything back up. And if they do, there are going to be prerequisites to it. There are going to be things that they're going to tell us we have to do in order to go back to normal. I won't be doing them. And just saying those words got my other channel completely defunded. And so we're over here. Trying to be a little bit more careful about how we talk about things. So I apologize for the coded messaging, but this is what we have to do, you guys. Now, the bigger channels, they make it because they have enough people that they've asked to help support them. So they don't need YouTube's advertising revenue, right, to survive. They're able to do this full time. But for smaller channels like this, that is really part of how we support ourselves. So this is why I have to be careful and other channels don't. So I hope you guys understand that. And then we're still getting the message across to you. Let me go in the chat here. Okay. Do you think the mark of the beast will be the VC? I won't be taking it. I just don't feel like there's a need to. Okay? I don't know if it's the mark, but think about what's in it. Okay? Think about the abomination in the temple. And Jesus said the temple is our bodies. So when you see something in the temple, that is, what do they call it? The abomination of desolation. There's many meanings to that. That scripture, the abomination that causes desolation, something in the temple is the verse that comes to mind. So that's something in our bodies, whatever it may be. So, I don't know if it is the mark, but anything that they're going to tell you need to buy and sell is probably the mark. That's a good question. All right. Chat's going by super fast. Seems like there's a lot more of you watching than the chat is showing. Never seen the chat go by this fast. Who do you go to, Casey? You got to put your full trust in the Son of God and the Most High. He'll direct you and lead you. There's no person that's going to save you. There's not even really a place you can go where you'll know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you can be safe. Okay? In fact, the Bible says those who try to preserve their life will lose it, and those who lose their life will preserve it. But it doesn't mean you can't take precautions, that you can't move into areas outside of cities, that you can't make some preparations. Not in a panic, but doing it now. This is what I've been trying to tell people for the last 7-8 years we've been on this channel. I've been trying to tell people that you don't want to be in the big cities, and every time I talk about this over the years, people keep pushing back. Well, guess what we just went through? You do not want to be in a big city right now with what we just went through. So I was proven to be correct. Could anyone have ever imagined the scenario that we just went through? No, I didn't even imagine the scenario, but I knew what God was telling me to tell you. Now it makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? We had quarantine zones. They were chasing people down out of New York who were trying to leave into Rhode Island. Blockades. People were getting trapped behind blockades. They were talking about quarantining people and grabbing you if you had a fever scanners. You wouldn't want to be within 100 miles of that. Now it makes sense what I was trying to tell you, doesn't it? Well, it's not me. It's God. Okay? And I don't know all the answers, but when God keeps impressing something on my heart, I'm going to share it with you. Okay, let's go back in the chat. That was a good question. Okay. The mask is in the Incredibles movie. Yes. Probably a lot of foreshadowing in that too, Jory. In the Incredibles movie, they wear the domino mask. Now, back then I was telling you guys, hey, look, if you're in a 30-year mortgage, paying monthly, and I kept telling you that's not sustainable. You're not going to be able to maintain that because life happens. Divorces, death, sickness. And you're going to lose your entire investment. We weren't made to be slaves for 30 years, nor does the economy permit that. There are dips in the economy. There are layoffs. Remember we had these discussions years ago? And I told you about my story, about how I had a couple $100,000 in equity in a home, and I told my ex-wife I wanted to sell. I've told this story many times. And she laughed at me. Why do you want to sell our house? I go, because we need to buy something that's paid off, remember? And then when we went to go look for properties that we could have paid off, that wasn't enough. She wanted to go back into another mortgage. I said, this defeats the whole purpose. This isn't something where you duck out and dive out last second and you run to some safe place. This requires planning. Just like Noah took 100 years to build the ark, you should have already been thinking about this years ago. Not that it's too late now, but maybe this whole thing we went through was a big lesson to some people to take a second look. In the new economy, 30-year mortgages just won't work. You're going to get hosed by the bank. You just will. Okay? I went through it myself twice. I don't care how safe you think your job is. You just saw how they just shut down the world economy and they hosed everybody out of everything. We'll see how all this plays out. Are these banks going to go and take up all these houses? Or are they going to give you guys a pass? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Okay? So, that's the truth, whether you want to believe it or not. Okay, let's go back in the chat here. That was a good question, too. Because I have a lot of good questions this morning. Okay. Wow, the chat finally slowed down. Now I can actually read what you guys are typing. When we're on the top of the hill, we want it all, right? When you're making six figures, you want the house, you want the cars, you want private school for your kids, and you think that you're going to be top dog forever until you're not top dog and you lose it all. The way we're supposed to be living is well below our means. I would say half of what you make, you shouldn't even spend. You should be living well below your means. All of us should. That's just good stewardship. There's biblical precedent for that as well. Being good stewards of the things that we're given instead of just going through things and consuming things and throwing them away and just consume, throw away, consume, throw away. The whole concept of fasting is, living well below your means or well below what you need to eat or consume or use. We're in a use society. Usury, right? We get some kind of a chemical reaction in our bodies when we open packages and use things and buy things and open things. You got to get away from that. That's of the devil. Because somehow it symbolizes prosperity, or it symbolizes something to us that we need. Okay? It's an energy thing. When you keep wanting things, to open things and consume things and rip things open. Okay? So, I'm hoping you guys are picking up what I'm putting down today. I'm trying to slow things down a little bit so people can understand. Sometimes I just assume everybody understands and is inside of my head, but a lot of times they're not. And I lose people. One, they think I'm crazy, or two, they're just not getting what I'm telling them. And there's a wide range of people that come to this channel in terms of understanding, and there are different levels. So this is why we break things down. Literally, I could take all of the week's live shows and probably put them into one long live show that would go 2.5 hours. But really, you got to slow down and unpackage this stuff. You really do, in order to understand it. Gluttony. Yes, Heather. You're absolutely right. Gluttony. And that is a sin, by the way. I had a friend once, and he was a smoker, and this isn't a bash on smokers, but you guys know what I'm talking about. There are the type of smokers that if they don't finish the cigarette, they'll put the light out and they'll save it, right? That's called being a good steward. It's probably a bad example, but there are other smokers that get a high off of having a cigarette in their hand, and they'll take 2 puffs and throw the cigarette on the ground, and they're smoking 2 packs a day, but they really probably could have smoked half a pack if they're good stewards of their cigarettes. But there's something in the brain where people want a new cigarette in their hand. And I don't know what that mechanism is, but there's something to it. It's just psychological, something happening psychologically with that. And he would go in, twice a day and buy cigarettes in the store while we were fishing. And I thought to him, as I would observe this guy, and I'd be like, wow, there's something going on in his brain. Because he takes 2 puffs off the cigarette, and he throws it on the ground and pulls another cigarette right out of the pack. I was like, there's something to that. And then I realized that represents a lot of Americans. This is what we do. We feel like we always have to be filling our basket with things. And we waste a lot of money and effort. And then we're driving ourselves crazy working to sustain the waste. A lot of Americans, I think they were saying 20 to 30% of the stuff in your refrigerator gets thrown away. We go to the supermarket and we buy things that are already in our refrigerator that we have 2 and 3 packs of, and things just continually go bad. Well, there's a problem with that, because what that does is it creates your own slavery. It creates your own slavery because you have to work to sustain eating your own tail. It's like the snake eating its own tail. I hope you're understanding this. I'm not trying to be critical of anybody. I'm just trying to explain to you with an example of how our minds can get thrown into chaos if we're not careful about how we're living our lives. We have to slow down sometimes and look at what we're doing. Okay? So that's about it for today. We'll be back on here tomorrow with part 3, Rise of the Raccoon. And I think tomorrow's show is going to be, let's take a look here. It's going to manage. Well, this stream can be accessed again from the manage list. Actually, will not end the stream. Okay. What? Whoa. This stream can't, cancel. What did I just do there? I don't know. I was going to try to show you guys what we had going on for tomorrow. I think we had a study pulled up talking about the raccoon dog. And there was an old CV study talking about the raccoon dog and how it was the reason, what do they call it? The vector patient zero for the CV. And so this started a decade ago with this study. They were already talking about the raccoon dog and pandemics. So that'll be tomorrow's show. And there's more. You guys can see all of the live shows on the front of my YouTube page. I have them scheduled right there. If you want to look at topics, and feel free, pop in on those shows before they've even aired, and you can go in the chat and leave comments. You can even leave a comment on the live show before it's even aired. So feel free to do that if you've got some input. All right. Much love to all of you. Have a great day. Take care and be safe, everyone.